What's up, guys? SaltEMike here, coming at you with another week in review. Sorry for missing last week, but I was building a computer that I'm recording with right now, so it just kind of didn't fall in line, and I thought it would go a lot quicker, but I'm still kind of piecing together everything that we did to make content before. It was kind of thrown between my gaming computer and my streaming computer, but anyway, that's kind of the update that you're going to get for me, and what's going on with me is I'm still kind of working on the new content creation computer, which I'm streaming and editing on now, where I was editing on the gaming computer before. So I'm trying to pull all of the stuff that I was editing videos with and bringing it over to the streaming PC, and I'm just like forgetting little pieces that were important to me, like even like fonts and stuff. And so that's been kind of a pain. But moving into the actual Star Citizen Week in review, as always, we start with the patch notes, and this week, we got a PTU for 3.6.2, which is just a patch for the 890 jump, and no bug fixes, no issues resolved, nothing. So if you own an 890 jump, it's pretty cool. If you don't own an 890 jump, you could still try it out, check it out, see if maybe you want to own one in the future. Just a little discussion on the 890 jump for me. Overall, I mean, the ship is fairly useless as far as what you would do with it in the game right now, unless you're interested in something like roleplay. But where it really has value is the 890 jump's really big, and it just kind of goes to show that they were able to do something that they kind of set out to do, is put these really big ships in game and have a lot of them in game and not have it affect maybe overall client performance, but it does seem to be having some issues affecting the overall server performance. And I'm doing the recording of this video at about 4 p.m. Eastern time, a little bit after 4 p.m. So there might be another patch that maybe resolves some issues with it that pop up. But right now, I find that if you leave Hurston or leave Area 18, which are the two places that you're able to spawn the 890 jump, your frame rate's pretty good. But if you try to fight against any NPCs, mine, any box missions, you'll notice that the server frame rate is really low. So even if you find a server that's like decent, I do still find like coming across some really serious issues. And I feel like the 890 jumps may have something to do with it, but again, I don't really know for sure, but I'm just kind of seeing my client frame rate be terrible in the areas that the 890 jump is in. So those are the negatives, but now let's look at the positives about it. If you own an 890 jump, I think they did a fantastic job for what you bought the thing for, right? It's very luxurious, it's very fancy, it's really nice to walk around in, right? And in the future, I'm sure there'll be some NPC interactions that are fairly interesting on the 890 jump, with like traveling, maybe certain like VIPs from one area to another, so on and so forth. Yeah, but so I'm really happy with it. I think they did a really good job with it. I'm just not sure if now was the time for the 890. Maybe after server-side OCS, it would have been a better time to bring it in. I don't know what our experiences are going to be like for the next, I don't know, maybe however long it's in the PTU, maybe the first week or two of live, and we'll see. I don't know if this is going to carry on for the near future, but it's kind of ruining the game for me, having really crappy frame rates. So it feels like the old days before object container streaming. So I hope server-side OCS could fix this issue, but we're going to talk a little bit about that later. Moving on to roadmap updates. Again, I've been kind of discussing this on the last few episodes. It just seems like minor work is showing up on the roadmap updates, but there's zero progress being made in the gameplay section for 3.7. Zero. It's still all scheduled. And, I mean, it's the end of August. This patch is supposed to release at the end of September. This isn't like last year where they were waiting for giving it a little extra time for CitizenCon. This patch is supposed to release at the end of September, and zero gameplay has been scheduled. and I don't think, or zero gameplay has been worked on. It's all just scheduled, and I don't think that this is. I don't think that's what's happening. So I don't know what's going on with their internals and how they're displaying the roadmap on their Jira or whatever, but something just isn't right. And Squadron 42 roadmap, some stuff has moved along. Again, I'm not really going to share too much of this. It doesn't seem super relevant right now. So leave me a message in the comments if you see things in the Squadron 42 roadmap that you think are really worth sharing with the community. Let me know in the comments below, and I will start sharing them. But every time I look through it, I don't see anything that really stands out to me. Then we had video content, and this is where like some drama came in this week. The Inside Star Citizen left its normal format and did a update on what QA is and why they're so important. And they do this from time to time where they kind of rehash content that they've done in the past because there are new backers. But I think it was actually somewhat important to do an episode like this because there's lots of blame games going around about who's at fault for the game being the way it is. And I think a lot of people, me included, have been like, how does this get through QA at times? I feel like I've said that. And I think it was really good to have this update. But this was the entire episode of Inside Star Citizen. And I'm not going to beat this dead horse. We've been talking about it for a week now. But I'm definitely not pleased. And I would say a majority of the community was not pleased with that episode being only about QA. I think we go to Inside Star Citizen for weekly updates on what's going on with the game. We still have no idea where ship rentals are, going back to PU roadmap updates. We have really no clue what's going on with 3.7 because the roadmap's not doing a good job of telling us. So really, we're looking at it Inside Star Citizen for that information. But anyway, to highlight kind of some of the things that we saw in the episode, QA is hard, apparently.
QA is a difficult job, and to QA an entire galaxy, even when you're only on one solar system, is an insurmountable task.
It's complex. It's very complex. We touch so many different elements of the game.
So yeah, being a member of the QA team is difficult. And the big thing here is they said QAing this game is an insurmountable task. And I think that's why they have us. So it's kind of our job to help out with that a bit. And I don't know how good of a job we are necessarily doing, but I think we're doing the best that we can with the tools that we have, because basically what we're dealing with is a live server that kind of starts out somewhat decent, has some bugs, and then over the course of a patch, everything really degrades and gets quite difficult to play. And a member of the QA team kind of explains to us probably why that happens here.
Live is where we are probably as finished as we're going to get with a particular patch. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's bug-free. We are very much an alpha. That's an important fact to remember. There are still going to be issues, but they're not game breakers. We won't see huge server crashes. We won't see small gameplay with huge errors. It will generally be in a state where you can enjoy it for a couple of hours, and that's what we want for the live environment.
So their goal is to make sure that the live servers are only good enough to play for a couple of hours. That's like a total disconnect that I get from kind of marketing speak versus speak of an actual person who's working on the game on a regular basis. So yeah, that was really insightful and interesting and different than anything I've heard in the past. That they're really, like, obviously we've heard, hey, it's an alpha. It's an alpha, it's an alpha, it's an alpha over and over again. But to explain, like, kind of the goals that they're looking to reach as far as how alpha it's going to be is pretty interesting because, you know, for me, I would have expected their goals to be, you know, have a little bit more quality of life than a couple of hours. But it's good to know what their expectations are so we can create ours properly. And I think that that's a big problem with us as a community at times. And I think it's partly their fault is they create these impossible expectations for the game. Therefore, we create impossible expectations for the game, and when the game doesn't deliver, we get upset. And then we get upset about the lack of updates because we don't have an enjoyable game to play, right? So I think this was a really good bit of information to communicate there. And then the last thing is kind of what we can do better. And we've talked about this before, but it's nice to hear it from one of the devs.
What I would absolutely love backers to do is to write up bugs on Issue Council that are full of as much information as you can provide us. And anything, even if you don't think it's relevant, it may well be relevant. Things like videos of the issue, images of the issue, say if you hit a bug while you were flying, like what ship it was, how long you'd had the session up for, so how long the game had been running for. Especially if it's a performance-related issue, like you're getting bad FPS, the length of time that you've spent in the server can be really important. So basically any information that you can provide, even though it takes you a bit extra time, it takes us less time to then investigate those issues and see if we can reproduce them or not.
All right, a nice bit of information there. As always, make sure when you do your issue council reports that you're giving as much information as possible, and they kind of shared what's important information for them to help do their jobs a little bit better and a little bit more efficiently. So make sure when you make issue council reports, you say how long you've been in the server and so on and so forth. And just real quick, I'm going to try and splice this in. There was something interesting in the video content. We got a really good look at the caves. So I'll clip those the clips of the caves together. They're really short. It's like less than 30 seconds of cave footage, but looks like it's coming along really nicely.
And the tools and the editor kind of encompass all different aspects of that. So when a new feature is added, we check it out, we make sure it's great, and that will eventually go to the editors and the designers who use that to create the game that you're playing.
And then moving on, we are going to talk a little bit about Star Citizen Live, but not much at all, because I don't really feel it's worth discussing too much, because it was a tour of the 890 jump, which is basically the entire 3.6.2 patch. So if you've jumped in the patch or watched any videos in the last week, you've likely seen a tour of the ship. So there's not really a huge point in highlighting this. So unfortunately, for I think the last 3 weeks now, we've basically skipped inside Star Citizen Live kind of info for our weekly updates, and yeah, it's pretty disappointing. And then, as we always end the show, we go into kind of the miscellaneous news of the week. So ship sales, things like that, and we had a ship sale this week, and it was the Aegis Nautilus. And it was a concept ship that was unveiled at a Concierge event at Gamescom. Now, the tickets for these things was pretty pricey. $275 a ticket to hang out with some devs, have a really good dinner, and discuss the game, and obviously get a little sneak peek into something that's going to drop in the future. So it is a strategic mine-laying ship, and for me, that means another layer of gameplay that is being added to the list of things that we don't have in the game yet, and can't really comprehend how they're all going to work together. So, and the sale page really doesn't have a ton of information about it. This likely means that it's going to be used for some sort of a linear Squadron 42 mission, either laying mines or disabling mines of some sort in the actual single player game, which makes a lot more sense for a ship like this, where the PU is a lot more sandboxy and a little different, where you can probably avoid these mines a lot easier than in a story kind of game. Now, it's a pretty pricey one. It's $675 for Warbond, $725 if you plan on using any store credit. What's also pretty cool is it's being sold with merch that goes along with it at the same time. I think this is the first time we've ever seen, except for maybe the Polaris, right? Since the Polaris, where a ship concept drops and a kind of merchandise drops with it. And the merchandise ranges anywhere from $30 up to $75 for the full pack of all the merch together. And they also dropped this kind of little game on their website, which they do from time to time, which was called Mission to Hadrian, which is basically like a Minesweeper type game, but you're playing against other people. So I played a game against Swoopy today. If you guys are on Twitter at all, you'll see her tweets from time to time, and she kicked my butt. So, getting into the Concierge event, there was some kind of information that leaked out of there. Again, this is just from a Reddit post. This could have been made up by anybody, so take all of this information with a grain of salt. The people basically at this event had exclusive access to devs, and when you have some drinks and you have some food and you're just talking to a person one-on-one, the devs are, in my experience, are always more open and willing to share information about the game that isn't necessarily shared on shows like Inside Star Citizen, unfortunately. So it was mentioned at this dinner that server-side OCS is targeted for 3.8, which was very obvious, as we've been saying here, because Microtech is targeted for 3.8. But they shared that it is likely that it could get pushed to the beginning of next year, where don't freak out. Like, a lot of people are starting to freak out by that, and if you just think back to last year, guys, the same exact thing happened with object container streaming instead of server-side object container streaming, where it was on the roadmap, and then it came off the roadmap, and we all freaked out, and it was because they weren't really sure where it was going to fall, and then it came back on, and came back in a very early time, I'm pretty sure. I think it came in 3.4? 3.3 or 3.4 or 3.3.5. I can't remember, but it was I think it was the third quarter patch that it dropped, and it had gotten pushed to the fourth quarter patch, but some work got done and it got brought back up. So at times like these, I don't like to freak out about these kind of things, especially when they're planning to just kind of ease us into the fact that this year's probably going to suck because we're not really hitting the huge technical hurdles like server-side OCS that we really need to have. I just have to tell myself the same things. Don't freak out. It's going to be all right. They also mentioned that hover mode was getting a revamp, where it's more just to kind of keep you level and it's less like helicopter flying. That's kind of disappointing and reassuring at the same time, because it didn't really enhance the gameplay as much as it made it more difficult. And there was just too many issues with it for now. So I'm interested to see what happens with that in 3.7, and that's kind of what it was planned for in this post. And the other thing was leaks are why the Evo QA doesn't get really early builds. So basically it sounds like whatever's in Evo, they're comfortable having leaked. We also had the digital goodies pack for CitizenCon come out today. It was $15, and it has the in-game decorative telescope, a in-game ship plushie, and a CitizenCon full armor set, as well as a CitizenCon trophy. So they did a much better job this year on the digital goodies pack, as it's not needed to basically get access to the live stream. It's just if you want to go ahead and support CitizenCon's live stream and their extra funds that they need to do it the way they like to, then go ahead and get this package. If not, then it's just basically in-game little trinkets anyway. So yeah, that's really it on the goodies pack, but I like it this year. So over the course of making this episode, there's been a couple things that keep popping up, so this is going to be spliced in as well. There was This Week in Star Citizen that came up and let us know that we're going to have a Pillar Talk this week. So the not-so-great episode about QA, but now we have a much-needed episode of Pillar Talk, talking about, hopefully, what to expect in 3.7, because the roadmap isn't doing a very good job of it. Maybe some talk about server-side OCS. But yeah, so very exciting to see that. Much, much needed. And yeah, I guess let me know what your thoughts are and what do you expect from this week's Pillar Talk. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for today's show. So I really appreciate you guys watching. It was a pretty quick show. The Aegis Nautilus is interesting, but it doesn't excite me too much. So I'm kind of curious, are you guys excited about the 890 jump? Are you excited about the Aegis Nautilus? What's going on with 3.7, do you think? So leave some comments below. Let me know what you guys think. And definitely leave me some feedback on today's show, because it feels to me like it's a little empty. But I don't know if it was just kind of a slowish week because it felt like a busy week. So let me know what you kind of want to see from the show each week. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next video. So thanks for watching, everybody.